back to the Pick Six podcast with E-Rose. I am E-Rose, your host, and this is episode number 2. Today we're going to be unpacking an amazing weekend in college football. And forgive me if the lights go out, some of the lighting we have, the lights have died, I don't have the charger. So we're just going to roll with it. We're going to go with the great lighting as long as we can. All right, let's jump in and let's really recap our weekend this weekend. So on Saturday, we were 4-2 on our picks this weekend. So not a bad weekend. Truthfully, it was such an amazing slate in college football. I was sad because I was out of town. And so I was really kind of watching on the road as we went. We had a friend's birthday get together on Saturday. It was a great time. But yeah, I was really kind of trying to watch on my phone. My friends throughout the day were saying, "Hey, dude, why are you on your phone all day?" And I'm really not a big social media guy. I'm not a stay on my phone all day and ignore people type of guy. But if it's a Saturday like this and such an absolute jam-packed slate with so many good games, yeah, I'm going to be on my phone a decent amount. I'll be multitasking a lot. So let's go ahead and break down our picks from this weekend. Again, we went 4-2. Unfortunately, we missed both of our upsets, but it was still a solid weekend altogether. 4-2. I'd much rather be 4-2 than 2-4. So let's review all of our picks from Saturday, starting with number 5 Georgia at Mississippi State. This was an interesting game. I watched it towards the beginning while it was a game. And I thought this game was going to be a lot closer than it actually was. Now, Mississippi State came out of the gate and they scored a touchdown. By the end of the first quarter, it was 7-3 Mississippi State. And I'm like, wow, Mississippi State's showing up. They're going to do something. They're putting in some work. They're going to keep this thing close. And it's going to be close to the end. And then Georgia just came out in the second quarter and just started absolutely pummeling Mississippi State. 21 points, unanswered points in the second quarter from Georgia. And they just kept laying it on them until they couldn't take it anymore, kept heaping it on their head. And this really was not a close game at all. The game was really never in doubt. Maybe aside of the first quarter, thinking it could be close or could be an interesting game. So Georgia takes that game 41-21, and they improved to 8-1, and their season record was 6-1 record in SEC play. So we got that pick correctly. Definitely more of a blowout than we thought and anticipated. Game number 2 is Indiana at Penn State. This was a good game. Again, a game that I predicted to be a blowout after halftime. I thought Indiana was going to run away with the game. You know, I was at the Ohio State game this past week. I'm a big Buckeyes fan, if you couldn't tell. And we just ran away with it in the second half, 38-14. I mean, just absolutely hammered Penn State. So I thought it was going to be the same story here. That was not the case. I remember I'm sitting down at the birthday get-together. We're at a restaurant in Columbus, and I'm watching the game, and it's 20-7. Okay, so Indiana's winning, kind of lower scoring than I thought, but I'm like, they got this in the bag. I mean, Penn State couldn't have found a touchdown if you handed it to them and gave it to them. And then Penn State just comes alive. And I believe it was the middle of the third quarter or something like that, middle to end of the third quarter. They just started coming alive, and they were scoring and scoring. And then you look up, and my friend tells me Penn State's going to win this game. And I said, there's no shot. There's no chance. And we see how it played out. But, man, I did not anticipate Indiana to be on the ropes and Penn State scoring and having the ball up 24-21. I believe that was what it was, 24-20 with just a few minutes left in the game. And Indiana was on the ropes. They had one shot, not a whole lot of time to score. And they just keep driving down the field, slant routes over the middle. And that catch, if you saw that catch on Saturday, it was insane. It was absolutely insane. I mean, Mendoza's got 8 guys coming at him. He chucks it into the back of the end zone. The receiver catches it. And I literally, for probably 36 to 48 hours, couldn't believe that it was even an actual catch until I studied it. And I was looking at the angles. I was looking where his foot was. And I'm like, that's a catch. That's a catch. It took me a while to come around, but I'm a believer. That's a catch. And what a win from Indiana, showing that they can if they're up against the ropes, they can hit you with some combinations and they can come back and they can empty the clip and they can give you everything they got. So we got that pick right, much, much closer than we anticipated. Game number 3, BYU at Texas Tech. This was, the game of the week in the media. There was College Game Day in Lubbock, Texas. All the, Josh Pate, all these different media companies. And really, this is the first time that the eyes have been on Texas Tech like fully from the nation in almost 20 years, since Michael Crabtree just absolutely stunned the Longhorns, if you remember that game. This was not really an interesting game. I thought it was going to be a walk-off field goal. That's what I predicted. However, we did get the pick correct. Texas Tech, 29, BYU, 7. And man, I was just stunned at how much Texas Tech just controlled the game, dominated, and just an undefeated team, top 10, BYU, and just proved that they are eons of better. And it just goes to show that it really does pay off to have NIL resources, whatever they spend. I believe 40-something million. It pays off to have good coaching. It pays off to have good players, talented, beyond and above and beyond talented players on your team. Texas Tech wins this one 29-7, not close, and Texas Tech proved that they're one of the best teams in the country, in my opinion. Game number 4. This is a game that we whiffed on, like completely whiffed. This is one of our 2 losses. Texas A&M rolls Missouri at Missouri. Now, this is a game I knew Texas Tech was more talented going into this game. I knew they had a better roster, better team, better coaching staff. All respect to Eli Drinkowitz, their coach, but I knew Texas A&M was better, okay? However, I just thought this was going to be one of those weird games where they don't show up to play, or they're not playing up to their potential as well as they could be, and they let it slip. And Missouri wins, and somehow at home, Missouri in a ruckus environment scores more points, runs the ball better. This was not really the case. It was a close game until half. There's about a minute under half, and I believe it's their backup quarterback, Zollers, goes back to pass. Texas A&M smacks his arm as he's throwing. They retrieve the ball. I don't know if you call that a fumble or an interception. Doesn't matter. They got the ball, and they run it inside the 10-yard line, capitalize on it. It's 14-0 at halftime. Now, there's not a huge difference between 7-0 and 14-0, but the big difference is momentum. I feel like Texas A&M did not have that much of an upper hand until this point, and they really started to shift the momentum in this play when they caused a turnover, get it down to 1st and goal, right going into halftime. They gained a lot of momentum here, and they just kept it going. They just continued to score on Missouri, and they end up blowing them out 38-17. So we whiffed on that game, but shout out to Texas A&M. They're 9-0, and they're doing real well. They could be headed towards an undefeated season, or 1 loss at most, in my opinion. Next game, another upset that we whiffed on, but I have no regrets when it comes to this one. This is Oregon at Iowa. This is a 3:30 game. As I told you, it was going to be nasty. It was cold. It was rainy. It was a Big Ten rock fight. When you think of Big Ten football, this is the game you're presented with when you just think about the conference and the layout and the schemes and how Big Ten plays up here in the North. And wow, what a game. What a game. This lived up to the hype as game of the week. Unfortunately, it didn't go our way. Iowa did not come out on top as the winners, but man, this was insane. I mean, Oregon scored 1 touchdown on offense, and Iowa scored 2. Anytime Iowa outscores you with offensive touchdowns, you're like, whoa, what's going on? They had to have won this game, right? Actually, no, not the case. I remember that drive. Iowa drives down the field, I believe it was like 70-something yards or something around there, in the fourth quarter, towards the end of the fourth quarter. They're driving down the field. Took 7+ minutes off the clock. It's 4th and goal. Gronowski, the quarterback, takes the snap, acts like he's going to pass. It's a draw, runs right into the end zone, does the 6-7, and I'm like, man, this is just poetic. This is just amazing. Iowa is taking down a top 10 team at home in Kinnick Stadium, but not so fast, my friend, as Lee Corso would say. Dan Lanning, the Oregon Ducks, that staff, they had some tricks up their sleeve. They had less than 2 minutes. And Dante Moore, who had not really done a whole lot the entire day, drives down the field and shows why he's one of the best quarterbacks in college football. Didn't have a great game, but man, once he got to that 2 minute warning, 2 minute drill, whatever you want to call it, I mean, he was lights out. He was lights out. They found some guys over the middle. They ran, strategically called their timeouts, and then they set themselves up for a game-winning field goal to defeat Iowa. What a hard-fought rock fight in the Big Ten. All props to Oregon. I wish it would have landed Iowa's way. It would have helped Ohio State out more, but that's okay. Props to Oregon. Props to Dan Lanning. The final game that we picked this past week was LSU at Alabama. Now, we did get this pick correct. Alabama did win the game. However, they were slightly underwhelming, I guess you could say. I thought they were going to run away with the game, assert their dominance. Hey, we're the team to beat in the SEC. And it really was just a slow game, just kind of a weird game. LSU scored 9, and they lost to Bama. Bama scored 20. So we all knew LSU was not great on offense. Don't have great play calling. Don't have great schemes. Don't have great execution on their plays. I mean, we knew that. So I did not expect a whole lot from LSU's offense. I mean, they put up 3 field goals the entire game, and that's it. I mean, it got to the point where Nussmeier was so bad that they benched him for the backup QB. And yeah, they really just weren't great on offense. We kind of knew that. We anticipated that. Now, what surprised me was not that, but was Alabama on offense. They were not exactly world beaters on offense. I mean, 20 points to end the game. They only had 3 points, a field goal in the second half. Just kind of a slow, dreary game for Bama. I mean, obviously, Ty Simpson's a great quarterback. They have a great passing game. They're effective with it. They didn't do that great in passing. I would say they just did okay on Saturday. We know they've had issues with running the ball. Haven't been a great running team. But you know what? All you really need this day and age is to scathe by. And if you win by 1 or 100, a win's a win, right? And that's, I'm sure, the way Alabama sees it. I'm sure they're going to want to try to work on these issues, even though it's very late in the season and almost too late to try to fix things in the running game. We'll see. But we got that game right. And our bonus pick, very sad to say, we did not get correct. I remember I'm watching the Buckeyes game in the fourth quarter. I believe it's 34-3. And I'm like, perfect. The spread was 30.5. And we said, we're taking the points. Ohio State's going to win by at least 31 points. And how much are we up by? 31 points. So we're right on. We're dead on. And I'm like, Ohio State's probably going to lay another touchdown on them. We're not going to give up any more points. And then boom, we put our backups in on defense. And Purdue decides, hey, it's time to wake up. It's time to go drive to the other end zone and score a touchdown. And that's what they did. And they absolutely destroyed my pick on the spread, scoring a grand total of 10 points, 34-10. We missed on the spread. That's okay. We'll get them back next week on our pick this weekend, on our bonus pick. However, we're going to jump into our conference championship game predictions, and we're going to be predicting conference champions to close the show. So tonight, we're going to finish up with the conferences. We're going to start with the ACC. Now, what's on your screen here is exactly what I'm looking at, and this is the standings in the ACC. You see there's probably 4 legit teams here in the ACC that could make a run, that can make a push and win it when it's all said and done. If you look at number 4, you have SMU. I really just don't see them competing and coming back to win this. Now you have Pittsburgh in the 3rd spot. You're like, wow, they're 7-2 overall, 5-1 in conference play. They could win some games and they could show up and make it to the ACC championship. And that's what I thought. And then I looked at their schedule last night and I realized they play Notre Dame, they play Georgia Tech, and I'm failing to remember the next team, but they played 3 ranked teams in a row. And Notre Dame, to me, that's an automatic L. I don't see how you beat the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. I guess we'll see this Saturday when they play. But yeah, I don't see Pitt making a push for the ACC championship. I do see the top 2 teams, even though Virginia lost on Saturday to Wake Forest, kind of a embarrassing loss. They're still 5-1 in conference play. They're still very much alive to make it to the championship game. So give me Georgia Tech versus Virginia in the ACC championship. Now, who wins that game? Well, one name. One name is what I want you to think of. Haynes King, the quarterback at Georgia Tech. Dual threat. Decent thrower, great runner. He's elusive. He's a great player. One of my most entertaining players to watch in college football. So give me Georgia Tech. I just think Haynes King, he's going to run all over Virginia. They're not going to be able to stop him in the ACC championship. So give me Georgia Tech as your ACC conference champions prediction. Second conference, we're going to go to the Big 12. The Big 12, obviously, we just talked about the matchup this past weekend versus Texas Tech and BYU, but who else has a chance? Who else has a shot? Well, if I were to be honest with you, I'm not taking Houston. You know, they are fourth in the standings. I don't think they're going to make it to that game. I mean, they've been very flighted the last few weeks, to say the least. Could Cincinnati get to the conference championship? Well, yes, they could, because they have a head-to-head matchup with BYU in the next few weeks. I believe it's next week, if I'm correct. They could. If they take down BYU, they will be there in that conference championship game to play Texas Tech. It seems like Texas Tech is going to be there regardless. They're 9-1. They got 2 more games left. We'll see. However, when it comes down to BYU and Cincinnati head-to-head, I'm taking BYU. I really just don't see Cincinnati beating BYU. Even though BYU got the pulp beat out of them, I'm not going to have recency bias. I still think BYU is a good team, and I still think they're more talented than Cincinnati is. We'll find out in the next few weeks. So, in the Big 12, I have a rematch from this past weekend. Texas Tech versus BYU on a neutral site. Does that change things now that it's not an away game for BYU? Well, here's my prediction. Absolutely not. It does not change a thing. I still think Texas Tech is a much, much better team than BYU is. No offense. Great team. They got a great quarterback, number 47. His name is Bear. How could you not root for the kid? A quarterback named Bear. That's awesome. However, Texas Tech is just, it goes to show like I talked about a few moments ago, their resources, their talent, their coaching. Like Texas Tech is back, and they're going to be one of the top seeds in the playoff, and they're going to be the team you do not want to play. You do not want to get matched up against Texas Tech. I have Texas Tech winning the Big 12 championship. That's my prediction. Our second to last conference, we're going to go over to the SEC, the Southeastern Conference. You see here on the standings, we have really 5 teams that are in it right now, in my opinion. You have Texas at number 5, Ole Miss, the 4th team, and then you have Georgia, Alabama, Texas A&M. There's 2 teams that I think are going to continue to win out, and that's Texas A&M and Alabama. We'll find out. We'll see. Texas A&M, after they won this past weekend, I don't see them losing another game. I think they're going to be undefeated, or maybe 11-1 if they lose to Texas in the final game. However, I don't think that's going to be enough to put Texas in the SEC championship game. I don't really even remember how they rule these things, like who goes to the championship. But I don't know. I think Texas A&M this might be their year, man. This really might be their year. I have Alabama facing Texas A&M in the SEC championship. It's going to be a hard-fought game. It's going to be a great game. Ty Simpson versus Marcel Reed. I mean, it could be a Heisman showdown for all we know. I think the winner of that game will be in New York. And who's going to win the SEC? Well, for the first time ever in over a decade since they joined the conference, I am predicting the Texas A&M Aggies to win the SEC, the Southeastern Conference, which is absolutely amazing. And this is going to be a historical moment because they have not won it since they have joined the conference. Next and final conference before we close out the show tonight is the Big Ten Conference, the best conference in college football. Yes, I say that with bias and with favoritism. That's okay. That's who I am. We have the standings here on the screen. We have a few teams that could compete for that top spot. You got Michigan sitting in at 5-1 in the conference, Oregon 5-1, USC 5-1. Obviously, we know this will kind of sort itself out in a way. You could have a few teams where they're deciding against, but you have USC playing Oregon, so one of those teams will be knocked out. And then you have Ohio State playing Michigan as well, the last game of the season. So that will give you your clear-cut team that will go to the championship. However, Indiana's at the top. I mean, after they showed the guts and glory on this past Saturday versus Penn State, I don't see them losing again, at least until the championship. They're 10-0. They got 2 games left, and they're not exactly facing world beaters in those last 2 games, if you know what I'm saying. So give me Indiana. Pencil them in to be in the conference championship. Against who? Could it be Oregon? Could it be Michigan? Could it be Ohio State? I'm taking the Buckeyes. Again, in my opinion, the clear-cut best team in college football, most talented team in college football. I believe Ohio State's going to beat Michigan, finally break that 4-year losing streak against the team up north. I have Ohio State versus Indiana in Indianapolis on December 6th. That is going to be an absolute barn burner. It's going to be a showdown. I believe that's going to be a close game. Who do I have winning? Well, if you look on the wall, you'll see my prediction. I have the Ohio State Buckeyes beating Indiana, not just by a point, 2 points, 3 or 4 points, 10 points. I got Ohio State by 10, 34-24. Buckeyes are going to win the Big Ten championship and snag the top spot in the college football playoff. Well, there you had it, everybody. That was such a great show today. Thanks so much for watching. We'll be back in just a few days as we get closer to the weekend. We're going to unpack all these big games, our top 6 games. We're going to give our breakdowns and our picks, and we're going to jump into the Heisman conversation as well. Thanks so much for tuning in. Have an amazing night, and God bless.